So let me ask a question. Show of hands. How many people hate going to meetings? A few? A few honest souls out there? Yes. Okay. Oh yeah, a little feedback there. So it's rather amazing how much these things that are part of our culture are a distraction. They're considered a waste of time. I mean, think about it. Public hearings. You have experts up in front sort of showering statistics at folks, and people are in the audience skeptical. They can't wait to get up to the microphone, and they attack back. And then there's elected officials who are kind of cowering in the middle. It's like, and they're watching the clock saying, oh, 10 more minutes, we're out of here. I mean, think about town meetings. I come from a town that has a town meeting tradition 300 years, and I love it. But honestly, every spring, every character in town, and believe me, there are lots of them, they all come forward because they know they get, for every issue, they get their 4 minutes at the mic. I remember when I was a child, and it's like on and on. And business dislikes meetings more, it's just intense. So they gave us this. A camel is a horse designed by a committee. You've heard that. And what does that tell us? It tells us that meetings bring out the worst in us. It also tells us that a collective group is less intelligent than a single individual. Here's another one you've heard. Meetings are like herding cats. What that tells us is that we're essentially ungovernable as individuals, and that we resist any type of collective organization. So I find this actually profoundly sad, because there are many of us who spend our lifetimes in meetings. And we're really afraid something awful is going to happen. And let me break it down for you. I think there's two main fears. We have a fear that we're not going to be asked to feel very much at all. We're asked to feel too little. And boredom really is, in a meeting, it's hostility without enthusiasm, right? And you see that here. So we're afraid of feeling too little, but we're also afraid of being asked to feel too much. And that's the group hug. Don't make us do a group hug. Don't make us sing Kumbaya. And most of all, under no circumstances, don't do anything touchy-feely. Now, that's a really interesting word, isn't it? Touchy-feely. It means I don't want to be touched by anything that's going on around me. I don't want to feel for anyone or anything. It's actually a great credo for a robot, but people say it all the time. Now, we've pretty much established that meetings are horrible, they're to be avoided, they're a waste of time, they're a source of boredom or awkward, and we're afraid of them. Guess what I do for a living? Yeah, I facilitate great big meetings. And I have full-time for years, for decades actually. And it's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it, right? So the core of facilitate is the word facile, which means to make easy. So it is my job to make it easy for meeting participants to accomplish their desired outcomes. And when you think about it, it would be an easy job if it weren't for the people, right? So take this example. I was asked by the president to convene this vision forum here at Hampshire last winter to help the whole community set goals for its future. And the condition was everybody's got to be able to come. 2,000 people could have come. We ended up having 600 at over 4 sessions over 2 days. But here's the rub. This community is known for being fiercely independent, very process savvy, very process sensitive. In fact, engagement is really a college sport here. So let's see what happened. And if you look really closely, you'll see people smiling. I know, after all we said about meetings, right? So afterwards, the president said to me, incredibly, notice the shock, quote, incredibly, we heard nothing but praise and appreciation for this event. It set a gold standard at Hampshire for inspiration and inclusion. The community wants to use this process to address other complex issues. I go around the world facilitating meetings. I often have people come up to me afterwards and they say, you know, that was really fantastic. We've never experienced this before. Well, I like the acknowledgement as much as anyone, but inside I'm saying, you know, we know how to do this. We've been doing this for years. This should not be a surprise. And that's why I'm giving this talk, is I want to help change the way the world meets. So how do you get a calling to do this type of work, and why? Well, here at Hampshire, I studied three things. I studied psychology, which is trying to understand the individual. I studied anthropology, which is trying to understand societies and cultures. And I studied architecture, which is understanding people in space. I actually put them all together and created my own major called Human-Environment Relations. And for my senior thesis, I went to Nepal and studied how house architecture expressed the spirituality and the cosmology of the Newar people in Nepal. Now, how did that prepare me for a lifetime of meaningful employment? I didn't have a clue. But the answer did come to me in an epiphany while I was under arrest in jail. In the late 1970s, I became alarmed about the rise of nuclear power, and particularly about radioactive waste, a problem which is still totally unsolved today. There were going to be 2 nuclear reactors built in Seabrook, New Hampshire, just north of Boston. And the Clamshell Alliance was formed to stop this construction through nonviolent, direct action. And their organization became the template for the anti-nuclear movement around the world. Now, you just don't send hundreds of people onto a construction site full of police to close the thing down without some kind of training, if you don't want violence. So there was intensive training, and it was incredible. And it was beautifully facilitated, and it was fun. And they taught us these amazing things. They taught us how to work together as a team. They taught us what a facilitative leader was and how to be one. They taught us how to operate as a self-managed team in a flat organization without hierarchy. They taught us how to equalize power in groups and how to elevate the contribution of women. They taught us how to achieve decisions by consensus. And they also taught us how to have fun while doing serious work. In short, I would argue, they taught us everything that corporate America would one day teach its workforce in the 1980s and the 1990s. So on April 30th, 1977, I was arrested for criminal trespass at Seabrook, New Hampshire, along with 1,400 or more other people. And the state did not know what to do with us, so they had a makeshift jail system. So I was sent to a large armory in Manchester, along with 600 other people. I spent a week there. Now picture a huge, open, dusty space full of 600 cots and 600 feisty protesters. I mean, there were no systems. When it was time to feed us, they literally ordered takeout from McDonald's. So the inmates were really running the asylum. So what did we do? We organized a school. And we started teaching each other movement skills. And there I met the talented designers of the training that had so inspired me. And they gave a workshop there in the armory called Democratic Group Process. And they pulled aside the curtains. They revealed the source code. They showed us what they did, every step of those trainings, and what it was designed to do and how they did it. And there in that dusty armory and those silly cots, I had this unbelievable insight, which is that the way you design a meeting shapes the behavior of the participants. And if you design it for democratic values and for collaboration and for mutuality and exchange, that's what you'll get. And if you design it or don't design it some other way, you'll get discord and conflict and hierarchy. The key is in the meeting facilitator. So I was so excited with this when I got out of jail. I trained to train others. And then I trained to train trainers. And so I was at this for a year, 2 years, and then suddenly I looked up and looked around and said, can you make money doing this? And that's when I discovered organizational development, consulting, and for professional meeting facilitation. Now, a beautiful thing happened. The strands of my life started coming together. When I facilitate meetings, I'm designing a temporary environment in which work gets done for people. So I'm really thinking like an architect. And when I design an agenda to help an individual see the world in new ways, I'm really thinking like a psychologist. And then when I design a series of meetings over time to help an organization change its culture, I'm really thinking like an anthropologist. So when I was a student, I was very fond of quoting Winston Churchill. And he said, we shape our buildings, and they in turn shape us. So now I'm fond of saying, we shape our meetings, and they in turn shape us. So it can be a pretty scary thing to be a facilitator working with hundreds of people. And here's the thing. There is absolutely no way one person can control the behavior of all those folks. It's impossible. But a meeting structure can. And it isn't really control in the sense of the word. It's more like a gentle invitation to behave in certain ways that the participants freely accept or not. So the art of facilitation is to design meetings that bring out the best in us. So let's take this meeting again. When you look at this picture, what do you see? For me, as a consultant or a facilitator, I see what we call the whole system. It means for a college that we have students, of course, and alumni. We have faculty and staff. We have adjunct faculty and administrators. We can also have people come in from the outside. We can have parents. We can have people who provide us with students. We have the people who hire the students. We have community partners. You get the whole system in the room. You aim for maximum diversity to get the best ideas. And then we double down. At every table, we design that for maximum diversity as well. We call it a microcosm of the macrocosm, or max mix. An amazing thing happens. We've designed the whole room for diversity. We've designed every table for diversity. And then as people start to report, they start saying some of the same things. And I know from my experience that the first thing people do when they start repeating what other folks have said is they apologize. They say, I'm so sorry, I'm repeating what the other table said. And I interrupted them and I said, no, don't apologize. This is the sound of common ground being discovered. It's what it sounds like. Now, when you invite a large group together to meet like this, it brings up one of the axioms from my field, which is that people support what they help create. So when you get everyone, the whole system, creating something new, and people are there at that inception, they support it. Well, I did one of these at a college, and after it, the development person came up to me and said, you just saved me a year of my job. Now, when I call people, instead of them saying, who are you? They're going to say, how can I help? Now, we talked before about the smiling that goes on. Now, why are people smiling in meetings, which we know can be so dreadful? Well, the first thing we do is we work hard to make it safe. We have ground rules. We say one person speaks at a time, so we're not talking over each other. It's a sign of respect. We say speak up, yet speak briefly. We want the folks who are quiet to be encouraged to stretch, to speak up more. We want the people who tend to speak a lot to stretch and listen more. We also engage leadership. We ask people to take on roles at the tables, a facilitator to keep the group on task and make sure everyone who wants to be heard gets heard, a recorder to write down the words of people as in their own words, a reporter who stands up and shares with the group, and a timekeeper who tells us how much time we have left. Now, we also have to animate and allow the natural spirit to emerge, but we can't do it in that way that activates that fight or flight response we talked about earlier. So we do it in a way that's universally loved and easy to accept. We have people tell stories. People love to tell stories, they love to hear them, but we ask for a particular kind of story, a story about a high point in your experience of this organization, when you felt most engaged, most committed, most alive, most proud to be part of this organization. And as you share those stories, it's like you're collectively creating an energetic bonfire in the room that starts burning brighter and brighter. Now remember, we've designed this room for maximum diversity, and our job is to find common ground. We don't have enough time to manage or resolve all the conflict that's in the room, so we just go for the common ground. How do we do that? Well, interestingly, we use a technique that was invented by a Japanese anthropologist working in the hills of Nepal. And he had so much data, and he ended up not being able to see the pattern, so he wrote it down on cards and started playing with it. So this is called an affinity diagram. And in a meeting, how we adapt it is, first we'll have two people to share their own sense of hopes and dreams and aspirations. We do that very privately because it's very intimate. And then that gets shared with the table. And we start looking at the patterns as they start to emerge, and it's kind of magical. And then the table says, here's 3 or 4 themes, and they put them forward as posters, and we start doing the whole process again on the wall. And it's like watching a beautiful photograph come out of a chemical bath, and it's magical and mystical, and nobody's in charge. And it's common ground revealing itself in front of us. It's very moving. Something else that's very moving is the sound of human conversation as people share their highest dreams and hopes and aspirations. Just listen to these voices from the
Improve
Hampshire
faculty
Forum.
and staff to student ratio.
Lower faculty
and staff to student ratio. Community space.
Campus accessibility.
Community space for students,
Community
faculty.
design space for community center, additional
Creating
student
and
presentation.
rejuvenating physical spaces.
Developing community centers.
Social and virtual community
existing
space,
spaces on
while
campus
also
to
making
support
progress.
ongoing and new community activities and academic programs.
Sustainability, grow endowment,
We want to increase the
reduce
amount
diminished
of
deferred
stability
maintenance.
of financial aid.
Need blind admissions for a diverse
More robust financial aid
Funding for
program.
institutional innovation.
More money.
Better and more secure financial plan linked to articulated...
Develop a strong economic
there.
footing and model.
Clarify Hampshire's brand. More compelling differentiation.
So this is the sound of the human spirit made manifest in conversation with the graceful assistance of facilitation. Thank you.